Before we begin, let us know in the comments, which country are you watching from? Now sit back and let this story unfold. My name is Nora, and I learned the hard way that betrayal doesn't always come from strangers. Sometimes it comes from the people who sit beside you at the dinner table, smile at your baby and call you family. It started when my father died. He was a quiet man, dignified, didn't talk much, but when he did, you listened. When cancer took him in just 6 months, I felt like I'd aged 20 years overnight. He left me his house, a modest but beautiful property in the countryside where I grew up, and a letter. This is for you and only you, Nora. Build your future on it. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. At the time, I didn't think anyone would try. But I hadn't yet met her. Sandra, my husband Daniel's mother. The kind of woman who enters a room like she owns the air, polished, calculating. Every sentence from her mouth sounded like it came with a price tag. She was cold to me from the moment we met. She once told Daniel loud enough for me to hear, "She's lovely, but not our kind of family." Still, Daniel insisted she'd warm up eventually. "We just need time," he said. "She's old-fashioned." But time didn't help, especially not after I got pregnant. Sandra called it a mistake. She said Daniel wasn't ready to be a father. She even tried to push me to consider alternatives, as if my daughter was some sort of inconvenience. Daniel didn't defend me. He just stared at his shoes. I told myself he was stuck between two women, that he'd stand up eventually, that he loved me. But I was wrong. A few weeks after my father's funeral, Sandra invited us over for dinner. Said she wanted to start fresh. I was hesitant, but Daniel insisted, so we went. I brought a copy of the house deed with me. I had to stop by the bank the next day, and it was already in my bag. That dinner changed everything. Sandra was unusually warm that evening. She smiled, offered me more mashed potatoes, even asked to feel the baby kick. I almost believed her. After dinner, she asked if she could show me something upstairs. She said it was a family heirloom she wanted to pass on. I followed. We entered her study. She asked me to sit. Then she offered me tea, which tasted off, but I didn't say anything. That's the last thing I remember before waking up on her couch. Daniel said I fainted, that pregnancy can do that I should rest. But something inside me knew. When I got home, I checked my bag. The deed was gone. I sat in the living room, silence pressing on my ears, the kind that made your heartbeat sound like thunder. My baby girl Emma slept in the cradle beside me, unaware that her future had just been snatched away. The door creaked open and Mark walked in, casual as ever, shaking rain from his coat like it was just another day. I stared at him, not blinking, not breathing, just waiting. He noticed. "Why are you looking at me like that?" I didn't say a word. I picked up the manila envelope from the table and tossed it in his lap. His brows furrowed. He pulled out the documents and read. The color drained from his face like a sink with the plug pulled. "You transferred the deed to your mother's name without telling me," I said, my voice calm. Too calm. Mark stood up quickly, like that would somehow make him more believable. I was going to tell you it's not what it looks like." I laughed. "You stole the house my parents left me, lied to me, and gave it to your mother. She said it would be safer in her name, just temporarily." "Safer?" I hissed. "From what? From me?" He didn't answer. His silence was the loudest betrayal. I grabbed Emma and walked to the bedroom, locking the door behind me. I didn't sleep that night. I held Emma tight and cried into her tiny shoulder, knowing I had to stay strong for her now. The next day, I went to confront Lorraine, my mother-in-law. She was in the kitchen humming to herself, making soup as if she hadn't just upended my life. "Ah, Nora, come in. Want some tea?" I stood there, shaking, fists clenched at my sides. "You took my house." She didn't even flinch, just kept stirring. "I didn't take anything, darling," she said with that fake smile. "Mark said it was family money, and family assets belong to the right side of the family." I blinked. "I'm his wife." She set the spoon down and turned to face me, that smile dropping from her lips like dead weight. "You were always temporary, Nora. Don't act surprised." My knees nearly buckled. "You think I'm temporary? I gave birth to your granddaughter. Oh, Emma will be fine, but you?" She leaned in, voice cold. "You were never meant to stay." I stumbled back, heart thudding, and drove home in a daze. What did that mean? What were they planning? That night, Mark didn't come home. No texts, no calls. Emma cried for hours while I rocked her back and forth, feeling more alone than I ever had in my life. By morning, I couldn't take the silence anymore. I opened Mark's laptop. What I found made my blood run cold. Emails, dozens of them, between Mark and Tanya, his ex. She hadn't just returned recently. She had never left. They'd been in contact for years while I was pregnant, while we were preparing the nursery, while I was in labor. There was one message I read over and over again until the letters blurred with tears. "Don't worry, babe. Once her inheritance clears, I'll make the transfer. Just keep quiet a little longer. My mom's handling it." Handling it. Lorraine had helped him plan the whole thing. They were draining me. Not just emotionally, not just physically, but financially, completely. I slammed the laptop shut and collapsed onto the floor. I wanted to scream, but all I could do was cry. For the woman I had been, the woman I had trusted him to love, the woman who believed family meant protection, not betrayal. The next few days were a blur of grief and adrenaline. I consulted a lawyer, desperate to understand what rights I had left, if any. He was kind, but his words were sharp and real. "The house is no longer in your name, Nora. Legally, it belongs to your mother-in-law. If your husband signed it over before the inheritance was finalized, we might have grounds to contest. But it's going to be hard." I walked out of his office with a folder full of forms and a heart full of fear. How had my life come to this? How had I fallen in love with someone who saw me as nothing but a transaction? When I returned home, Mark was waiting at the door, arms folded, eyes red like he hadn't slept. "Nora, we need to talk," he said. I walked right past him. "Please," he followed, "just hear me out." I turned. "You want me to hear you out after you conspired with your mother and your ex to rob me blind?" His face twisted with fake remorse. "It wasn't like that. Tanya was just... Don't you dare say she meant nothing," I spat. "I read your emails, Mark. You told her you loved her, that once my money came through, you'd leave me." He blinked, swallowed, but still had the audacity to say, "It was just words." I laughed bitterly. "Just like our vows, huh? Just words." He tried to reach for Emma, who was sitting in her playpen nearby. I stepped in front of him. "You don't get to touch her. You don't get to pretend to be her father after everything." His jaw clenched. "She's my daughter, too." Then you should have thought of that before making her future part of your scheme. That night I slept with the door locked again. The next morning Mark was gone. But this time I didn't cry. I gathered every document I had, every bank record, every email. I created a timeline. I called my lawyer again. It was time to fight. But while I was building a case, Lorraine struck again. She showed up at the house 2 days later with a smug smile and a letter. "Court notice," she said, waving it in the air like a trophy. "We're reclaiming the house officially. You have 10 days to vacate." My breath caught. "You can't do this," I whispered. "Oh, but I can," she said sweetly, "and I did. You see, Nora, I told you from the beginning. This house isn't yours. It's family property. You just married into it. Now that Mark has made his decision, well, you're no longer part of the family." I couldn't speak. I felt frozen in place. She stepped closer. "And Tanya's moving in soon. Just thought you should know." That was the last straw. I slammed the door in her face and sat on the floor, shaking. Emma crawled into my lap, sensing my distress. Her tiny arms wrapped around me. I broke down completely, but even in my breakdown, something inside me hardened. I wouldn't let them win. Not this time, not ever again. I moved in with my friend Marissa the next day. She had a small 2-bedroom apartment on the other side of town. It wasn't much, but it was warm, and more importantly, it was safe. She didn't ask for explanations. She just handed me a key and held me while I cried. Emma adjusted quickly, always smiling, always trusting. A reminder of everything I still had to fight for. Over the next week, I turned all my grief into resolve. I filed an injunction with the court. My lawyer helped draft a petition contesting the deed transfer, arguing it was done under manipulation and without informed consent while I was grieving and pregnant. We gathered every email between Mark and Lorraine, including the ones that referenced the plan to make use of the inheritance. We even found a bank transfer from Lorraine to Tanya's account just days after the house was signed over. The judge granted a temporary stay. They couldn't evict me until a full hearing, but that didn't stop them from trying to intimidate me. Tanya showed up at the daycare one afternoon, my daughter's daycare, and tried to pick her up. Thankfully, the staff knew better. They called me immediately. When I arrived, Tanya was arguing with the receptionist, claiming she was Emma's future stepmom. I almost lunged at her. "You stay the hell away from my child," I hissed. "One more stunt like this and I'll have a restraining order with your name on it." She smirked. "You think Mark's gonna stay loyal to you? Please, he's already moved on." "Then stay moved on," I snapped, "and leave us alone." Later that night, I confronted Mark over the phone. He didn't even deny it. "She's going to be part of Emma's life whether you like it or not," he said coldly. "I'm still her father." "No, Mark," I replied. "You're a thief, and soon a stranger." I hung up before he could say anything else. The court date came 2 weeks later. I stood in that courtroom with my lawyer beside me and a folder filled with truth. Mark, Lorraine, and Tanya sat together like some twisted family portrait. I told the judge everything, from the letter my father left, to the night I woke up on Lorraine's couch, to the forged paperwork, to the emails that spelled it all out. I didn't cry. I didn't raise my voice. I just told the truth. When I finished, the judge looked at me, then at Mark, and he said 6 words I'll never forget. "Mr. Ellis, your actions are reprehensible." The judge ruled in my favor. He declared the deed transfer invalid due to manipulation and coercion, restoring the property rights back to me. He further ordered an investigation into potential financial fraud by Lorraine and Mark, especially surrounding the movement of funds related to my inheritance. Lorraine stood there speechless for once. Mark lowered his head, too ashamed to look at anyone. "Tanya?" She stormed out before the judge had even finished speaking. Justice felt surreal. When I walked out of that courtroom, I could feel the weight that had been pressing on my chest for months slowly lifting. Emma ran up to me outside, giggling, unaware of the battle her mother had just fought and won. We went back to the house that same evening. Our house. I had it cleaned top to bottom, redecorated every room, and threw out anything that even smelled like the past. No more pictures of Mark, no traces of Lorraine's presence, no room reserved for Tanya or anyone else who tried to erase me. Marissa helped me paint Emma's nursery again. This time we chose yellow, bright and warm, like the future I was starting to believe in again. A few weeks later, I got a letter from Mark, no return address. It was handwritten and messy. "I messed everything up. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I don't even know if I should be writing, but I miss Emma. I miss us. I was weak. I let my mother get in my head. I let Tanya use me, but you were real. You were the only real thing I ever had." I didn't respond. Because some things, some betrayals, they don't get answers. They don't deserve closure. Mark was charged with financial misconduct. Lorraine, too. The funds Tanya received were frozen by court order. And while the legal system moved slowly, I moved forward. I started working again, part-time at first, then full-time. I built a new life for myself and Emma, a quiet life, a real one. One day, Emma asked about her father. I knelt beside her and said softly, "He made some bad choices, sweetheart, but we're okay, we're strong, and we have each other." She nodded and wrapped her arms around my neck. That hug, it was all the healing I needed. Sometimes betrayal doesn't come from enemies. Sometimes it comes from the people who smiled at your wedding. The ones who said welcome to the family and then tore it all apart behind your back. But you survive. You rebuild, you learn that blood doesn't define loyalty, and family? Family is who stands beside you when everything else falls away. I lost a husband. I lost a mother-in-law. I lost a fantasy I thought was real. But I gained something greater, the truth, and the strength to never let anyone steal my worth again.